Okay guys, I'm going to do activity 1.3.4, which is CAD modeling skills here. I already have a project called 1.3 CAD Fundamentals, and inside of that I have created a new folder by using new folder that's called 1.3.4 CAD modeling skills. And now I'm going to go ahead and start a new new component. It tells me to create a new component, start a new sketch. So that's going to be under assemble. I'm going to do a new component, and I would go ahead and name that, I don't know, part 1, 1.3.4, and go ahead and hit OK. But we'll talk a little bit about components and bodies and whatnot in class, but I'm going to go ahead and get started. So now I'm going to go ahead and create a sketch. I'm going to sketch a 4-inch by 6-inch vertical rectangle. So I'm going to come up here and I'm going to sketch, and I'll just choose a default plane. Now I'm going to use an appropriate or a best practice, which is good. I'm going to use a center rectangle. I'm going to click rectangle, and then I'm going to come over here and hit center rectangle. I'm going to click on this, and I'm going to kind of drag out. I want that to be 4 inches tall, so I'm literally taping 4, tab 6, enter, and that puts a 4-inch by 6-inch rectangle on my that is centered on the origin here, and that's a very helpful thing with things like symmetry and whatnot. Fusion, there's some instructions on how to do that here on the website, and I'm going to keep going. Part 5 asked me to put 3 polygons on there, a circumscribed polygon at 0.35 inch, an inscribed hexagon at 0.25 inch, and an equilateral triangle with 1.25 inch. And then it directs me in product documentation and access use sketch tool to learn how to do that. So I'm going to do just that. I'm going to come up here to the question mark, hit that. I'm going to go to learning and documentation, and then product documentation. And then I'll go ahead and hit this out like this for a second. I'm going to come over here to design sketch, and then perhaps polygons. And over here, you'll notice it has a tutorial on circumscribe polygon, inscribe polygon, and edge polygon. If I, let's see, go back here, going to minimize that back. If you'll note here, when I go to create the polygon, for that circumscribed pentagon, when I go to create polygon, this right here, this drop-down menu, are the 3 things that are covered in that documentation. So that's a really good place to learn. But I'm going to go ahead and click on Circumscribe Polygon, come down here and click. I'm careful not to click on a line because I don't want to accidentally give it a constraint. I'm going to put 0.2 or 0.35 for the radius, and then I'll just tab over and hit 5 there. That'll give me a pentagon. I'm going to do an inscribed hexagon of 0.25 inches. So I'll come over here, polygon, inscribe polygon, and I'll put that there. That's already by default going to 6 sides. I'm going to hit 0.25 and enter. And then lastly, I'm going to create a polygon using the edge polygon. I'm going to come down here, I'm going to go up, and I literally will just simply type 1.25. I'll hit enter, and then I'll come this way, and then I'll type 3. That tells it to be a triangle, and I'll hit enter. And there are the 3 pieces that I want to do. Now it's going to ask me to do some constraints here on that. All right, so the center of the pentagon needs to be on a vertical line through the center of the rectangle. So that's this line right here. So I'm going to go ahead and add a construction line in order to do that. So I'm going to add a line. I'm going to come over here and click construction line. And then I'm going to come along this top here until I see that triangle pop up, knowing I'm on the vertical. Come down here with a vertical line. It's trying to snap. And I'm going to put that there. So now I want the center of the pentagon on the vertical line there. So that is a constraint. I would imagine that is, I'll probably do it with collinear or coincident. I'm going to do coincident and try. I'll tell that to be on that. And I'll right click and OK. I'm going to go ahead and click that construction line off right now while I'm thinking about this. Should be able to, yeah. So that goes up and down, but it does not leave that line. So the part A is done. Part B, one side of the pentagon is horizontal and located 0.85 inches above the center point of the rectangle. All right, I can do that. Boy, I'm trying to think of the easiest way to do that. I can certainly click on this and then click on a constraint and tell it to be horizontal. And then I could perhaps dimension it from a line. Let's see, I can't choose that. I'll choose that to that and tell that to be 0.5 inches. Enter. So that is going to be, so I constrain that to be horizontal and did that. That's pretty straightforward. One side of the hexagon is parallel with the 6-inch side of the rectangle. 6-inch side of the rectangle, which is this. So that is already going to be true. That doesn't make any sense to me. One side is going to be horizontal. I believe that's going to over constrain. Now I'm going to try it. Maybe they're trying to get me to see that it would be over constrained. But if I tell that to be, yes, if I try to tell this to be parallel to that, I get an error. Sketch geometry is over constrained. And the reason being is this is already horizontal, this line. This line is already horizontal. Therefore, they must be parallel. To add another constraint that tells it to do the same thing, it's going to give me an error message. Hopefully that was intentional. All right. The center of the hexagon is coincident with the diagonal of the rectangle. The center of the hexagon is coincident. Oh, I see. I apologize. I have to go backwards for a moment. Okay, Mr. Spurgeon was unable to read there for a moment, and he read pentagon when he should have read hexagon, so part C. Now, what I just did, though, was very useful. It explains the error of overconstraint. However, I was supposed to do this with the hexagon. So one side of the hexagon is parallel with the 6-inch side of the rectangle. So that would be this, and I would constrain it as parallel. Let's see, parallel to this and that. All right, now the center of the hexagon is coincident with the diagonal of the rectangle. All right, I can do that. So I'm going to do coincident, and I'll click on that and that. That it does that just fine. The center of the hexagon is 5 inches below the top of the rectangle. So I'll do that with a dimension here. I'll click on that and then click on that. And oops, terrible job there. I'm going to click on this and that and that. And boy, I'm just a mess. I apologize. Okay. Dimension. There we go. 0.5. All right. So you can see that it had to move it. It had to slide up in order to stay on that. And then for the center of that to be 5 inches below that. That's pretty good. Okay. Now I'm going on to constraining here in F, the equilateral triangle. The vertex of one vertex of the equilateral triangle is coincident with the corner of the rectangle, with a corner. It doesn't say which corner. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and do coincident, and I'll do that, and just for ease, I'll do that. I can do that. And then the center point of the equilateral triangle is coincident with the diagonal of the rectangle. So I'll click on that and that. All right. Not too bad. That is, I believe, all of those. So here's an invisible constraint. Sometimes you'll add a constraint automatically with the constraint display. For example, two sides of the regular hexagon will be a parallel by default. If you later try to make those parallel, it would give you an error message. So that is the message of over-constraining. But for what I'm doing here, this is great. So I would now snip this and go like that. I'd hit edit copy. I'd come over to this and let me make this big for a moment, and then in my here I want to go for 4 through 6. I would put that right there like that. That shows obviously that I've done steps 4 through 6. I'm going to undo this as I using this to make your deliverable as I go. All right.